The night my wife told me to ask our daughter for money instead of our millionaire son, something inside me broke. My son had millions in the bank, yet when I needed help to save my life, I was treated like a burden. That moment taught me a painful truth. People reveal who they really are when you have nothing left to offer them. My name is Daniel Carter. Years ago, I was a successful real estate investor in Texas until everything collapsed after an environmental disaster froze the land I had invested my entire future in. I lost my business, my savings, and my reputation almost overnight. I spent the next decade working long hours in a warehouse just to survive, while everyone around me acted as if my failure had been a choice. My wife Linda never asked how I was holding up. She only asked how I planned to fix our problems. My son, Ethan, blamed me for ruining his comfortable life and never forgave me for the opportunities he believed he lost because of my financial collapse. Only my daughter, Grace, stood beside me through every difficult year without expecting anything in return. Then another disaster struck. Doctors found a tumor in my lung. They said surgery could save my life, but I needed $3,500 before they would even schedule the operation. I had terrible credit, no savings, and nowhere to turn. After days of swallowing my pride, I called Ethan. I explained everything, hoping that somewhere beneath his success was still the little boy I had raised. Instead, he coldly told me that my problems were the result of my own bad decisions and suggested I ask the hospital for a payment plan. Before hanging up, he reminded me that he could not keep carrying my dead weight. When I called Linda, hoping she would convince him to help, she defended our son instead. She told me not to ruin his success and suggested I ask Grace, a fourth-grade teacher who earned only a modest salary. I never wanted to ask my daughter for money, but when she saw me a few days later, she immediately knew something was wrong. Before I could even finish explaining, she placed an envelope full of cash on the table. She had sold her car and taken out a high-interest loan just to help pay for my surgery. She told me that cars could always be replaced, but she could never replace her father. Her sacrifice saved my life. The surgery was successful, and while recovering in Grace's apartment, an unexpected letter arrived. After 10 long years, the government had finally released my land from environmental restrictions. Another letter followed immediately after, with an offer from a development company. They wanted to buy my 60 acres for $15 million. I sat in silence, staring at the number. Only weeks earlier, I could not afford surgery. And now my worthless land had become a fortune, because the highway expansion I had predicted years before had finally reached the area. Instead of celebrating, I called my attorney. He reminded me of something I had almost forgotten. 5 years earlier, my wife had legally separated herself from the land because she feared my debts would destroy her finances. At my son's suggestion, she signed documents giving up every future claim to that property and anything it might ever become. That decision changed everything. I quietly sold the land, paid every debt I owed, and placed the remaining fortune into an irrevocable trust for Grace. She never asked for anything, but she had already proven what family truly meant. Not long afterward, Ethan and Linda stormed into Grace's apartment demanding answers. They had discovered the sale through public records and threatened lawsuits, claiming the money belonged to the family. Calmly, I handed them the legal documents they had signed years before. Their own signatures had permanently given away every right to the land. Then I showed them another piece of paper. It was Grace's bank statement showing only a few dollars left after selling her car and taking out a loan to save my life. While Ethan celebrated million-dollar business deals, his sister had sacrificed everything without hesitation. I looked at my son and quietly reminded him that when I needed only $3,500 to survive, he turned his back on me. Grace had given everything she had without asking for recognition. The trust could never be changed. Every dollar belonged to her. Linda stood speechless. Ethan realized his own legal advice years earlier had cost him millions. The fortune they believed they deserved was gone forever, protected by the very documents they once thought would protect themselves. After they left, Grace looked at me with tears in her eyes and said she never expected any of it. I smiled and reminded her of the words she had spoken the day she sold her car. Cars can be replaced, fathers cannot. That day, I finally understood that wealth is not measured by the money sitting in a bank account. It is measured by the people who stand beside you when you have nothing. My son had millions, but my daughter had something far more valuable. She had a heart that never abandoned family, and in the end, she became the richest person in the room.